I'm going to start over again and do this whole intro. Today we're talking to JP, and he is a Marine veteran, and I met him on TikTok. And this guy, he's got such a great point of transitioning from the military active service to civilian, and it's such a great mindset. And Patrick, I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of his videos, but it's just, you know, you're going to have shit days, right? And when I transitioned out, I had so many horrible days. For me, my bridge was I wanted to find people that were like me, that had that same story. So what I did was I created this program where I go back to I went to San Jose State, graduated there, and they have the VRC, the Veterans Resource Center. So there's a plethora of veterans there. And I go there and talk to them about selling houses. I don't try to sell them on anything. I'm about buying houses, creating legacy, creating budget, and then this whole financial thing started, and that's where we are today. And then I also help out with this thing called NovaVet, which is it's a directory of how veterans can get help. Points them in the right direction for whatever ails them, whether it's drug abuse, mental issues, financial, what have you. And there's a bunch of different ways for them to help out there. And then I see JP, and these things, you're like a perfect fit for this, right? You're like the perfect fit. And why don't you explain who you are, what you are, where you came from, what your passion is, how you fell into this?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you, Vito and Patrick, for taking time to be with me here today. I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful thing when you can come together and share and communicate and just grow as individuals. So I always cherish these opportunities. So my name is Juan Perez, Coach JP online, and a little bit about me. I grew up in Chicago, and when I was growing up, yeah, I didn't make the smartest of decisions. I didn't have my head screwed on just right. And as much as my parents loved to try and steer me in the right direction, I rebelled a little bit. I got in trouble. And you know what? I ended up getting expelled from a few high schools. I ended up going to a total of 4 different high schools.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was all my doing. But back then, the thing is, I didn't recognize that. Of course, you don't know anything at that age. You think you know everything. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because it's a huge point of what I talk about now during transition. So when you join, you're 18, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Thankfully, I met a teacher that set my head right and put me on the right path, and I joined the Marine Corps. Went off. I did the Marine thing. I had a beautiful, freaking amazing time. I was stationed in Pendleton. I was a 3rd Battalion 1st Marines, and I was infantryman, deployed to Afghanistan, came back, went up for the Scout Sniper platoon, did the NDOT, did well, went off to sniper school, came back, and at the time, I was dating this girl, and of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but my decision at the time was it's time to get out and move on and see what else is out there. And I had no idea just how challenging it would be. And the reason why it's so challenging is because you feel like, think of it this way. I was a 21-year-old Scout Sniper team leader in charge of young men, feeling like I was indestructible. I just deployed to Afghanistan. I came back. I was absolutely at what I felt was the prime of my life. And then over a weekend, I lose my culture, I lose my best friends, I lose my leadership, my mentors, my peer group, the people that I was in charge with, my subordinates in a way, everything I knew. And then I come into a society that honestly I was never really a part of. When you're 18, the hell do you know, right? So one of the biggest things that I talk about is that we have to understand that we're not coming back into a society. We've never really been a part of society. You're 18 when you join, you ship off, you come back. You really have to work very hard to leverage the positive things that the military gave you. You really have to work hard to leverage the things that the military taught you that actually benefit you. And a little bit about me, I didn't do that. I did the exact opposite. I came home. First place I went to was the VFW, and I met up with some Marines that were there, and I did all the things that I talk about not doing now, which is you wear all the military garb and you wear it every day, and there's nothing wrong with being proud of who you are. I'm wearing a 3-1 Lima Company hoodie that they just made, and I found it online, and I'm proud of what I've done. But the thing is, it can't consume you. It can't be the coolest thing you've ever done. So I got out, I did that. I thankfully found some Marines that helped guide me in the right direction, but I got married right away. I took a job as a law enforcement officer right away because I thought, well, that's what's next for me. I kept doing the drinking heavily. I picked up the habit of smoking cigarettes because I felt like I needed something to decompress. I hated society. I hated civilians. I felt judged. I judged everybody. I let the lone wolf alpha mentality completely control me. And I do mean control because in the moment, you feel like you're in control. So I realized like I was not in control. And then I got my mind because I went down this path of a lot of negative issues, divorce, overweight, 30 to 40 pounds overweight, just completely controlled by the alcohol, completely pushed my family away. Any friend that I had, all I knew was hanging out with veterans, specifically Marines, because you find this echo chamber of everybody else is terrible and you're the best ones, and like it consumes you. And then slowly but surely, I realized just how miserable I was. And I started realizing like this is self-induced suffering. And there's a difference between self-induced suffering and kind of intentional hardships, right? It's like intentional hardship. Like I choose to jump in the ice barrel every morning. But self-induced suffering is basically pointless suffering, in my opinion, where like I decided that I'm going to alienate myself from everyone around me who possibly could benefit me. I decided that I'm not going to go to therapy. I decided that my family doesn't understand me and screw them for that. I decided that I'm going to do this and that, and it was all my doing. However, I do believe that recognition is its own reward, where you realize that because you've gotten yourself to this place, because of everything that you've done, it's also in your power to change it and course correct. That's what I did. I hired a trainer. I started working out. I quit drinking cold turkey. I quit smoking cold turkey. I completely changed my mindset. I started reading every single day and applying the things. I religiously listened to podcasts and audiobooks. I didn't listen to music anymore. It was just an awakening. It was an awakening of me realizing if I keep going down this path, I'm going to end up dead. I'm going to end up dead because eventually it's to a point where the more you feel like you're in the darkness, it's not going to just get brighter magically. The light doesn't just shine for you if you keep placing yourself in the darkness by covering your eyes and pushing yourself deeper into the freaking dark abyss of that cave. And I made changes, like I said, and I got my life right. And now I have a company, Vet Rise Academy, and the purpose of it is to start with the foundation of helping veterans have a successful transition, but it's founded in four pillars of fitness, nutrition, accountability, and community. And the accountability part goes much deeper than just, hey, did you do the workout? Or, hey, have you been eating the right food? It's, hey, listen, I noticed that you haven't done 2 workouts this week. Why? And then you have a conversation, you detach, and you figure out, okay, are you having nightmares and staying up late at night? What's coming up for you? Okay, how can we address this? Okay, this. And the point of it is that I want to help build up the veteran to where he can feel strong enough to like go to the therapy that he's been wishing that he could have been going to for a while, to where he can feel strong enough to leave a relationship, to where he builds up confidence and he can get the better paying job, ask for the promotion, not push his family away, let go of the ego, eventually drop it. And the whole goal of it is to build community and help the veterans see that he's not alone and understand that fitness is the foundation, because if you feel confident, if you can wake up early and get a workout and then eat the right foods and do a morning habit and develop a morning routine, before you know it, if you're consistent, you're going to start to feel that little spark of motivation that everybody craves, right? And in my opinion, motivation comes and goes, absolutely, but what you're really looking for, the magic word, the magic sauce, it's not even the discipline. People love the word discipline. I love the word discipline. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, like, a lot of people tie discipline with logic and that it's something that should be automatic if you really care about something. But I think that you do have to look into the emotion a little bit. And I think for me, when I think about like, why am I doing this? Why is this important? The word devotion comes up for me. And I think that if you're devoted to something, I think that if you're really devoted, you understand the why. And if you understand the why, you can build a passion. If you have a passion, the discipline will come. And by God, do we know that when we have discipline, that motivation is just there for you. I apologize for the ramble.
No, dude, you keep going. You just keep motivating the hell out of me. Keep going.
Thank you.
So you had four pillars. You talked about therapy and fitness. What were the other two?
We focus on nutrition, fitness, nutrition, accountability, and community. And the goal of it is to get you to a point where you feel a little bit of more confidence to pick up that phone and schedule that therapy appointment that you've been putting off. The goal of it is that 2-3 months in, you throw on that pair of freaking pants that you tried on 3 months ago and they didn't fit you. And because you tried them on and they didn't fit you, all these feelings came up. Because we all know that when something happens like that, you realize you make all these connections of the pants don't fit me, I'm fat, I'm overweight, oh, I'm disgusting, I'm a failure. This is why I can't get the job. This is why my wife hates me. This is why my kids don't want to spend time with me. This is why, and before you know it, like you're spiraling. And the hope is that when we can get you to fit back in those pants or make those small little wins, like you're like, damn, this is why I'm a winner. This is why I'm succeeding. This is why I do care about my life. This is why I matter. This is why there is success after service. There is a life after what we've done. And all of it comes together in the message that I've been talking about. The byproduct of the business that I started was the fact that I did start making videos online and I started having more of a developed opinion. And honestly, the most beautiful thing, in my opinion, of what happens in life is what we grow. Imagine if we never changed our minds about anything. Like, that would be really sad, because that means that we are not flexible enough to learn anything new. So throughout the last year, I've been putting messages out, videos, developing content, and it's become its own entity. It's part of the business, absolutely, but it's honestly become a little bit separate because I don't spend too much time online on my videos talking about my programs or my business. I'm trying to develop goodwill. I'm trying to change the veteran culture, just one message at a time. And throughout the year, I've realized that message, in a way, has evolved, has changed, and it's really come to the point where I'm realizing that we have to learn to leverage the positive things that the military gave us, but we have to also understand that perhaps, and this is the unpopular opinion that a lot of people don't like to hear, and for your listeners, it might rub them the wrong way, especially if they're Marines. You'll see what I mean. But I think that the term, once a Marine, always a Marine, is actually hurting veterans. I think the fact that we connect so strong to the military, and then we leave, and then it's a one-sided relationship. You're no longer in the military, doesn't think about you. They send you a letter here and there. The inactive reserves recruiter will hit you up if they need people for something, or if you want to do this or that. Like, the Marine Corps has moved on, and yet we haven't. The Army has moved on. They've replaced you. Your team has replaced you. And this in a actual logical way, meaning that it's not like you didn't matter. It's just that in that time, in that place, in that location, the purpose is the mission, and the mission is that we have to keep moving and we have to keep going, and that's just how life is. But yet we keep thinking about the Army, the Marine Corps, we keep thinking about our buddies up at Tune, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have to learn to cherish it. We have to learn that it was a beautiful chapter in our lives, but we have to learn that it is not the climax of our story. It is not the best part of the book. It needs to be a chapter, because we need to keep writing stories. We need to keep creating new chapters, and we need to keep coming up with new adventures to have, so people keep reading the book. Because if our book of our life is not interesting, then what the hell is all this for, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, you're just singing such the perfect tune, because over the last, I got out in 99, so you do the math. And I was in the reserves then, so it was like, and my mindset, I was so angry, I was so mad, and I was just like, fuck the world, fuck the Marine Corps, fuck this, blah, 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 blah. I got out, and I didn't want anything to do with the Marines. And over years, it just took me time to figure out, you know what, it is a part of who I am. I'm good with it, and I am okay with the whole idea of once a Marine, always a Marine. But it's just a chapter of my life, right? It is just a small chapter of my life. It built the foundation of who I am. And everything you talked about, the nutrition, fitness, accountability, mindset, I live my life every day because of how the Marines taught me how to be like that.
Absolutely.
I wasn't in trouble with the law, but I was a big fat pig. I was totally undisciplined going in, and I came out and I ate that red pill. I loved it. I loved everything about the Marine Corps until I picked up a rocker and I hated it. But yeah, and here's the thing: you're saying you're going to have good days, but you're going to have a lot of bad days too. I have to look for those small wins and build on them, right? Because I have professional, I have life, I have God, I have fitness, I have everything going on. And it took me years to start going back to church. And I'm not a religious guy. I like the message. The message feeds me because I was ready to accept how to become a better human being. It wasn't the message or Matthew, whatever. I don't know the Bible. I love the message. I love the people. I love that community. And that's not like my life, but it's a part of who I am.
Absolutely.
My family and my friends. I build civilian friendships. I build friends. I still keep in touch with guys I knew from 7th grade. I retouched with those people and I build myself back up from who I am and how I am. And I incorporate my Marine mindset to become a better person. Am I perfect? No. Am I going to have shitty days? Yes. You're going to get knocked down. And I had a friend who used to live next door to me. He moved to a couple towns away, and he was a deputy sheriff. He worked in the jails, and he hated his job. He hated everything. Everything was negative. Oh my God, life was falling apart. And this one, dude, life is going to serve you a shit sandwich. It's your job to take that bite and smile.
Yeah,
because if you don't, you're going to keep on getting knocked down and kicked to the curb. And that's what the Marines taught you. You get down in the first thing it was a receiving drill instructor. So we're going to throw you down on the ground. It's your job to get back up. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And that was it. So I love what you're saying. I love your message.
Yeah, I wanted to jump
in.
And you said a ton of stuff there that was just really gold.
Thank you.
That part about not letting our service consume us. That is so huge, and you're spot on. That's a challenge for, especially, I can't speak to women because I'm not a woman. I'd imagine it's the same. However, I can speak to men in that I think it's a big problem with men, males, in that society built in a way to make you need to have certain things to look successful, right? And so it's hard to do that in a society where all your success around you through social media, through Instagram, through whatever, and all these things that you're supposed to be, and you're not. And so you'll want to look back and see, when was I that thing? Oh, football. I played football in high school. It's like the Al Bundy curse, right?
7 touchdowns in one game.
Al Bundy forever lived, right?
Whole high school.
Bring up the glory days. And we're aging. I guess I'm aging myself with that old show.
I know some of it, yeah.
Right? And the veterans, of course, it's the same thing. And it's that time in our lives where we look back on and say, those were the days. And I'll be damned if it's not true that there are times, man, I miss being on mission. Like, I miss that feeling of riding out in the convoy, doing pre-brief, and going out, and just that the energy of being that young buck with the weapon out there with the mission. And so I totally get that. And I don't feel bad about feeling that way. However, you said it right on point, letting it consume you, having having a vision of the past instead of a vision for the future.
Yeah.
So that's beautifully said. You said it way better than I could. And I just latched onto that and thought how true that is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's just so true. I'm just curious. You said it. I think one of the beauties of social media and the videos you've been doing is it's what Jordan Peterson, if anybody's followed him, he says what writing does. And writing clarifies your thinking. In a way, doing all these videos and putting yourself out the way you have, it seems like it's helped to clarify and reveal more of yourself publicly in a lot of ways, right? And so that you are...
This right here is doing that right now, too.
Clarifying your thinking, yeah.
But you're being authentic, right? You're not trying to sell anything. You're being authentic. You're sharing your journey of healing.
You both right now just made me realize something. I have my phone and I take notes on it for things that come up, but I also message myself. So I have conversations with myself. So like you can message yourself and it'll pop up as a message for yourself. And whenever I have something that comes up that I want to dive into, I just put my phone out and send myself a little message because then it pops up as a notification for me later on. And what I wrote down right now is that there's a dichotomy to it. When you get out, you don't want to go to the extreme of, you're right, the Marine Corps definitely played a huge part in who I am. And I think that the extremeness of it is the issue. But I think that when I got out, the way I reasoned it and wrote it down is that you end one relationship and you get out into the civilian world and society and you're looking for that next love and you're looking for that next purpose. But you leave the Marine Corps behind for a little bit because I thought about it deeply. And I'm like, I also was just angry at the Marine Corps and I wanted to distance myself from it. And I did. That's why I got fat, lazy, and didn't do a lot of things, but then you can't find that new love or that new mission and that new next relationship or that new next purpose. And then you start thinking back to the good old days and you start wearing the Marine Corps hoodie and the hat and the veteran this and veteran that. And then you're like, well, this kind of makes sense. I missed this part of it. And then that's the part that there's something there. And I want to dive deeper into that because you guys both made me think about that right now. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Patrick. It came to me and I wanted to say it.
No, that's just free flowing.
Yeah.
You know, whatever comes through consciousness, man, let it come out.
Yeah.
However, I think it ends with not ends. I would say it leads to community, which I love how you phrased, the 4 pillars, and with that 4th pillar being community. Because I think that's probably what so many veterans, people, you name whoever you are, ultimately really want.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's not the thing. However, it's a thing for sure that people want, need, and thrive with. Whether it's a church, whether it's a social club, whatever it is, people who have those things in their lives just tend to thrive and do better. And I know for myself, being a reservist, I think I'm going to my 27th year. Was able, thank God, I've had a great career. I haven't been hurt in any way. I'm physically healthy, and got to do a lot of great stuff though, and still in. Right, so I still have my feet in it. However, I can say when I'm not around it, I miss being around the culture. I miss being around soldiers. It's like being part of the team, all those things. And
missing the short haircut.
Short hair, yeah, I know, right? I could say my brother, he retired as a sergeant major before he wanted to, on his own terms. And I realized in talking to him and his experience that he was like Mr. Army to me when I was a kid.
Yeah,
he was my hero a little bit in some ways. And so when he got out, and I realized that. And the way he was speaking, you nailed it too. Hey, the Army, I may love the Army, but the Army don't love me. It's just a machine that keeps going on.
It's just so hard because it was the first real thing that you had for most of us. I don't know the percentages here, but let's think about it. At least for me, at least for the 3 of us here, right? Out of the 3 of us, for me, when I was 18, when I was 17, because that's when I signed, right? And then when I was 18, I shipped off, right? When I was 17, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do after high school for me. And I'm not saying that's the only reason why we joined, but it's one of the reasons. What's next? And then you see that freaking recruiter, and he doesn't chase you. You're going to the Navy officer, you're going to come in here. He doesn't care. He doesn't need you. And then you realize, oh shit, I like that. I like the fact that I'm not being chased. And this person just completely signifies strength, right? And it draws you in. And it's like the first time you fall in love. Oh my God, everybody remembers a recruiter. It's that kind of love of, it's the first person that believed in me enough that he knew I could do it, because the Army, no offense against the Army. I love all my, I gotta be careful.
Waiting for it.
You don't. You do absolutely do not. We're all having fun. We all poke fun at each other. We're allowed to have fun with that.
But believe it or not, absolutely, 100%. But I've learned, Patrick was talking about, like, the social media being on, like, I've learned that, like, the people that love to troll and just bring you down, when they see something that they can latch onto, they're gonna run with it. So I've learned not to be careful, but to understand that people will twist the message if given a chance. So in order to avoid it, I'm not censoring myself. I'm just being clear with the message and making sure I address everything. So I love the Army, but the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, other branches, their recruiting style is different. They're going to explain why the benefits of this can benefit you, right? And then the Marine Corps is, how can you benefit us? Why do we need you? Why should we take you? And it's rare. You don't really see that too often. It's
very different come from. It's a different come from. Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally different come from. You're right. And
that's called a takeaway close, by the way.
Yeah.
In professional sales training, there's a takeaway close. Here's a little taste. Get high on cocaine, and you can call me when you're ready.
Yeah.
Right? And now you have a dysfunctional girlfriend called the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And we're gonna meet one there. But I think you reminded me of something that I think this is part of the challenge too. And that 4th pillar, I think, is really addresses this as well in a lot of ways. I'm gonna say men in general. I can't speak for the women. I'm gonna speak for men. And I think the military in Western society, we don't really have that strong initiation process we had to bring young men or boys into manhood in a very organized cultural way, where a lot of other societies have had that. I think for a Western society like ours, like a democracy like ours, it's the military does a really good job with that, though. Or that, I don't say it's a good job, but it's replaced that for a lot of people. I know for me, That's what it did for me. There wasn't no organized way or intentional path that brought me into manhood, right? It was just an experience that bumbled my way through. Nobody guided me. I didn't have a strong church I was growing up with. There wasn't a bunch of strong male role models that were taking me by my hand and sitting me down once a week, having those conversations. None of that. It was the military did that for me at 17 years old. They said that's what it was.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying that's what it is. And right? Yeah. And we still want that as we mature. And not the initiation part, but the sense of belonging, the sense of the acknowledgement, to know that I'm doing the things that my tribe deems as acceptable and is good and right, and knowing that I'm on the path, right? Community is a big part of that. So I love that you got that as part of your process, part of your what you developed to bring to the veteran community. So that's perfect. I think it's so needed to nurture a community where men and women veterans are growing, supporting, and reaching forward.
Thank you.
Whatever they want to do.
What are you doing for community now? Do you have a group? Do you get together once in a while and chat or?
Yes, the biggest part about the group is that it's self-sustaining and grows on its own with me watering, right? It's like watering the plants and helping them grow and grow together and be a community, right? That's basically what we're looking for. So I have a private Facebook group only for my clients, and then I also have an open Facebook group called the Vet Tribe, which is open to any veteran who wants to join. It's a place where they can grow organically as well, and I share stuff in there. But the private group specifically, in there, we can post wins, we post celebrations, we support each other. I encourage all my clients to go in there and be a little bit vulnerable because they learned that the power of vulnerability is pretty amazing. Because when you test the waters and you realize like you're not going to get burned and there's going to be support there and there are people that are going through what you're going through, you develop this like memory that like, okay, I did this, it was safe, therefore I can do it again. And little by little you start doing that more and more. We have coaching calls every Monday. So today at 6 p.m. CST, we actually have Mindset Mondays where I go into the Facebook group and we spend about 15 to 20 minutes trying to develop a strong mindset for Monday. Even though Monday is technically over, I want them to go into the rest of the week because everybody always dreads Monday, right? But I want them to go into the rest of the week with true just devotion for that week and making sure that they realize it's just Tuesday, it's just Wednesday, it's not about dreading day. And then on Thursdays, we do Thriving Thursdays. On those Thursdays, we have a specific topic that we cover, and they're all recorded, they're all posted in the group, so they always have access to them. And we talk about different things, such as limiting self-beliefs and negative self-talking, the power of no, and learning to not volunteer for every freaking working party. Learning that you can let go of relationships, that you can move on, that you don't have to live life the way you've been living it. Developing morning routines, developing nighttime habits, working on how to meal prep. So it's very much tactical as far as actual things that they can apply, as well as strategic, thinking about the long game, thinking about things that they can emotionally change in themselves. And we have a private group chat as well. And in there, daily, like it's just popping off as far as, hey, I made it to the gym and I'm posting the gym selfie. And it serves a few purposes. It's not just about being social on social media. It's about being and giving into a group because we spend time on our phones anyway. What better place to actually give something into where you're going to get something back? And we do that. Yesterday we had 4 new members join, and the first thing that I asked them to do once they sign up and they're ready to go, and I get them all set up on the app. I have an app that I use for the fitness portion of it all and the nutrition. But as soon as they do that, the first thing I tell them is like, all right, John, I want you to go into the Facebook group and you're going to post a video introducing yourself. I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us why you're here, why you decided to make a commitment to yourself to actually change the way that your life is going and what you're most excited about. And typically the response I get back is a face of just discomfort. And the reason I do that is because I want to push them into a little bit of discomfort initially. I want them to realize like I'm about to do something uncomfortable, and I want them to realize that I don't want them to just feel like it's whatever, because at the end of the day, like I want them to start from a place of discomfort, because the moment that they get 10 to 15 to 20 replies, comments, encouragements, people saying, I was there too, oh, I served in the same unit, or oh, no way, my buddy, this, like, you go from that negative of discomfort to extreme positives. And think about that shift, right? Because when you start here of, okay, I'm going to do it, nothing's going to happen, it's whatever, and you end up here, this is the growth that you have. But when you start from a place of negative, when you start from a place of, this is not going to work out, I'm going to be embarrassed, no one's going to reply, I'm going to hate, this is terrible, and you go all the way over here, you've crossed a much more path of growth. And that's what I have been doing. And that's how we built community.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's great, man.
That's so great, dude. Do you have them go out into the real world and talk about what else they do? Because once you're done with the Marines, right, or once you're done with the military, you have what I realized it was me giving up my ghost. I didn't have a mission anymore. My depression came from I miss the Marine. I don't miss the Marines. I miss my buddies. I miss the mission. I miss doing something. I miss training and going, because I never saw combat, not like you guys, right? I was Desert Storm. That was my job, and I got stuck in Okinawa, Hansen, for a while. So there's
a
a
whole
little
other
bit
thing
of
I talked
guilt there.
about.
Sorry?
That's a whole other thing I talked about.
Yeah, right. And
Like,
then,
you're
like,
still a veteran even if you're deployed.
Yeah,
I got to, and I got to accept that, right?
Yeah.
And
A lot of people don't.
a lot of people don't. I'd say that's probably a huge problem that doesn't get as much attention, respect, or love compared to the other narrative, or not narrative, the other situation where for veterans gone through combat and suffered a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's also a challenge too.
Yeah.
And I
didn't mean to jump in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. I go through guilt. I go through lack of confidence. I see other guys wearing their old freaking raw shit and veteran this. I'm like, hey, you know what? I better not talk to him. I don't know, because I don't feel like, but I know I am. I know I totally deserve it. But then there's that lack of confidence. There's that little boy coming out and saying, for sure, yeah, you don't deserve it, man. Shut your fucking mouth. Just don't even talk to him. But who knows? But the reality is I could reach out to him and I can have a 10-minute conversation and I could save his life because I mentioned something. Who knows? So there's an opportunity always. And I regret a lot of times that I don't do that. And I fail at it all the time. But the thing is, I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be perfect. And that's okay. And giving up that ghost, going back in 99 when I gave it up, realizing that I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back. And then my wife was in the hospital with my twins. We had high-risk twins. She had to stay there for 2 months. And I have a 4-year-old boy at the time. He's 21 now. So I went to a little carnival, and I saw my old CEO. He goes, hey, Skarnakia, I'm going to Afghanistan. I want you to come along with me. I'm like, oh. I can't. I have 2 daughters.
Yeah, I hear you.
Days old in NICU, right? There's no freaking way. I would have been divorced.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to watch my children. And part of the reason why I got out is because I wanted to watch my children grow up. So
think about that decision and the impact that it created in your life, because the guilt, hopefully, eventually, maybe already, like, it should be washed away by the fact that you had the fortitude, the mental clarity to realize, like, the decision that you're making is heavy and it's going to influence the future of your life and the future of your kids and your marriage. And you got to remember that at the end of the day, like, you're an individual. We're all individuals. And as much as I love the Marine Corps, my country, and all of that, we play the small part that we need to when we need to, and everybody plays a part. And when we deploy, we do what we can. And when we don't deploy, we do what we can here. And everybody is a part of the machine, absolutely. But we have to, like, think about the emotional side and the side that really matters the most of all of that is that we have families, we have a future, we have emotions. And when we don't feel like those emotions, those feelings, when we don't treat ourselves as human beings and we pretend like they don't matter, that translates to, I can't talk about my problems. I can't approach my friend to talk about how angry I am that we left Afghanistan the way we did and how I feel like I wasted all my time in, which is a whole nother thing, right? Because, like, the guilt that maybe you felt or feel or had the experience with was, I didn't deploy. I think that there's something new that is happening, at least for me, and I haven't really talked too much about this yet, so this is new, but I think there's this guilt of what did I do that even mattered? I spent a year there, 9.5 months, and it's almost as if it never even happened. Like, the country is exactly where it was, if not worse than it was before. And why were we there? What did we build? We left all these weapons, and I'm not here to talk about the politics of it, because we know that when you go down that path, it serves no one, right? By the way, you look like General Mattis when I just looked at you right now. Mad Dog Mattis. That's the feeling I got right now.
Oh man. Now he's going off.
I know. Now he's never gonna let it go. but to round off that thought is like there's the guilt of not, but then there's also what did I do for the past 6 years of my life in the Marine Corps? What was it all for? If it's almost worse off probably now than it was before. Why did my friends die? Why do I have 5 friends that committed suicide in my platoon? Why do I have 3 of them that have died from what they call natural occurrences? But it's not natural to drink yourself to death.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, I just had a.
Yeah, it's a good.
I received a phone call. No, I received a phone call about a week ago, and one of my buddies that I served with, and unfortunately, if history has anything to tell me, is that when one of them calls me, it's because they have something to tell me. And I always let it ring 3 or 4 times when I answered. And I was partially right. And one of the guys that we deployed with, we served with, had passed away. And it was a very long 4 days for me. Not for the reasons you would think, but because we weren't sure if it was a decision he made or if it was something that happened to him. And then when I found out that he was found in his sleep, surrounded by bottles, it didn't really change the way I saw it because it still felt like it was a decision that he had made because of what he had been through. And at the end of the day, you just don't know what could have been different for him had we not been out there and then come back and then just told, by the way, everything that you did out there in that country that we said we were helping and making a difference in, we're abandoning them. You just don't know if that's the reason why he kept drinking. You just don't know if that's the reason why he didn't seek therapy. You just don't. And that eats at me because it's like, what do you do about that problem in your mind that you can't even put a name to? How do you even address that? I think it takes work. I think it takes time. I think it takes the talking about it. That's the first time I honestly have said that entire paragraph at whatever out loud. And I know eventually the more I talk about it, the more that it will make a little bit more sense and hopefully find a little more clarity and develop some sort of reasoning behind it, right? Because if we don't fail, if we don't fall, when do we ever learn that lesson? Because when you win, you feel like, okay, it happened, I did what I was supposed to do, and this happened. But when you fail, you can really look back and analyze, like, where could I have done better? And I think there's lessons in there as well. So hopefully talking about it brings more clarity in the future.
That's the best thing you can do is talk about it. Thank you for sharing that. That means a lot.
Thank you.
I think sorry, go ahead, Vito.
I had a friend, a Marine, who got out and he OD'd, right? It was like, that was the first time my entire life I ever heard of anybody committing suicide. And he was just never a happy guy. And we were in the same platoon. He was a machine gunner. I was a mortar man. And we never saw eye to eye. We weren't best friends or anything. We weren't like, he wasn't like Matting or Bustani or freaking Death Row. Those are my guys, right? But we would mess around, fuck around, hang out, got into trouble a little bit, and that was cool. But it was just like, losing somebody like that's that close to you. I don't know. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
But I can't, to me, and I don't know how you deal with it, right? But for me, it affected me. It made me angry. And it was like, that's not what we're here for. There was an instant switch in my mind. That's not what we're here for. We're here to commit good, right? And we went into the Marine Corps to commit good. We went into for a reason, right? Because it was the military. We wanted to do it for America. And no matter how you look at America right now, right? That was our mindset. And then we got brainwashed. And our mindset was changed to become killers. And that's our job, right? Whether you did or didn't, that was your job. And to me, when I saw Baylog and I heard that he killed himself, we all went together and talked about it and went to a little bar and hung out and chatted about it. But it affected me, and it's one of those things that I accepted the anger, I accepted the pain, I accepted not being able ever to punch him in the face again. But he made that choice, right? I can't feel guilty for it. There's the anger part, and that's something that over time has gone away. Could I have reached out to him? Yeah, right? But I didn't. He wasn't my best friend. We didn't have that relationship. But and since then, I've had people kill themselves. I had my brother-in-law kill himself on alcohol, and he was just pissed off because he got fired from a job that, he was supposed to make millions of dollars on, and they screwed him over, and that he went down a massive spiral, and I saw him just continue to do that.
Yeah.
Could I have been a better person about it? Could I have been more active about getting to it? No, because I was dealing with my own demons, right? Mm-hmm. I had to do what I had to do. Mm-hmm. And again, you please don't think that I'm telling you how to do this, right? This is how
you're good. I'm taking this all in. You're good,
right? Because you have to figure that out. That's your journey, and I'm happy that you talked about how you did it and what you're feeling. And the more you talk about it, the more you go out. I still go and hang out with my buddies from the Marines. There's a few of them over here. We go fishing. Henry and I, whenever I go on a trip to go do a talk for real estate or whatever, I go, Henry, I'm going to Florida this day to this day. He goes, book me a flight. Done. And then we go and act like we're 21 again. That's the only time I drink, right? Whenever I go and hang out with him. Other than that, I don't drink. I hang out. I eat fairly decent. I work out 5 days a week. But it wasn't like snap, boom, here I am, right? And I'm not perfect today, and I still have goals of where I'm going. But the way I did it was I bit off a little bit every day, micro improvements every day. And I can tell you I fail a lot more than I succeed. And that's my chase. That's my reason for being, is to become a better person.
That reminds me of something you said earlier, JP, about I totally understand what you mean by there can be a disservice from the context, I guess is what I'll call it, around once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah, the context.
The context that somebody has around that can be detrimental to you because you're always looking at the past, right? I think the more successful veteran who transitions and does well in the future is one who says, yeah, once a Marine, always a Marine, because I take those things I learned and bring it into my life that were positive, and I'm using them today. These are tools I use. Whether it's I worked out every morning in the Marine Corps, the Army, whatever it was, and once a Marine, always a Marine, so I'm working out this morning, and I'm having a great time doing it, right? So it's just a matter of what meaning we derive from it and how we use it moving forward.
Absolutely.
And so when I see something like what you're building, it can remind people of that, right? Hey, take the good, leave the bad, right?
Yes.
Move forward with what you want to move forward with. And then those things, with the right context, can totally be powerful. And it's just really just a tool to move ourselves forward.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. Another thing I was thinking about too is, and I have an unpopular opinion about this, and it is my opinion, and it's not meant for every single veteran.
I love it. Let's hear it.
Right? It's not meant for every single veteran. It's not, I'm speaking generally, and it's very different for any individual person.
Mm-hmm.
It is my opinion that most veterans, when they join the military, based on the experiences and the way they grew up, from like 0 to 6 or 7 years old, whatever happens during that time can decide a lot about how you deal with adversity and experiences moving forward. It's not going to be fun everything, but it's going to be a lot. If you have challenges, if I had challenges with substance abuse or it runs in my family, before I ever joined the military, won't cause my substance abuse, but man, it's going to really affect my ability to withstand it once I get out, depending on the context I've developed or built around myself around that experience. Mm-hmm. So I'm using a lot of words to basically say that depending on my experience growing up, it's going to decide a lot of how I deal with things that happen to me in the future. And that's for most people. Without going too far down that path, what I think is beautiful also about the community you're building. Veterans are uniquely qualified, in my opinion, to continue serving in a mission-based way to build their communities. So programs like yours have an awesome capability of improving the way somebody becomes a father, right? And so they have children who from 0 to 7, that super formative foundational time in their lives, have a strong male role model in their life to help support and guide them through that initiation process that we talked about earlier. So it's not just the military. Oh, and by the way, they don't join the military because they don't know what else to do. And since they had such a shitty childhood, they end up getting stressed out and they get out because they don't know what to do now. So they're drinking, binging, doing drugs, getting all kinds of crazy. Some don't make it.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm not making sense. Maybe I am.
No, you are. I don't mean to. Let me just jump in real quick, but
yeah,
I'm thinking when someone tells me something like this, I immediately try and position myself in the story of, is this something that happened to me, and how do I reflect on it? And I think honestly, if you do that, you're going to come up with some stuff in your mind of whether this applies, doesn't, how does it, or how does it translate for you. And I think you are onto something as far as the formative, like, young years, what you experience, what you go through. No matter what, it's going to affect you. And I think that the Marine Corps, if I'm understanding correctly, can either exacerbate or give you the tools to deal with the maybe nuances or things that you experienced traumatically or went through when you were younger.
Yeah.
So like when you get out, you're still gonna have to deal with the missions. Like, did you develop tools, or are you going to suffer because you didn't? Maybe that's just my interpretation of it, which I think is fine because they all interpret stuff differently. But I understand what you're saying.
You're saying it better than I can.
Nah,
I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Is
I like to think of things functionally. So
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
When did you get out?
2013, I did the voluntary early release program, VERP, which negatively affected the Marine Corps in so many ways they didn't even realize. But they lost almost, I think it was 80 to 90% of their combat experience.
Wow.
When they put that program into place, and they didn't expect it to happen. Two things were happening. I'm going off. I know you asked a question and I answered it, but this is important to me because two things happened when that happened in 2013. They were forcing out sergeants who were not up for selection for staff sergeant, and that happened a lot. And that affected a lot of people because their plan was to stay in. They were careerists, and just because they weren't selected for staff at the 10-year mark, they were forced out. One of my buddies ended up taking his life because of that, because he lost what was his career. And then with what they did with us is they said, okay, you can get out as long as you have some sort of employment, and it could honestly be anything. So a lot of people took that as an opportunity to cut ties and be like, all right, I'm gonna get out early. And I did that. I went to work for a private security firm up in San Francisco, and I got out about a year early. And a lot of people took the opportunity, and the Marine Corps lost a large percentage of all the combat experience, and everyone that they were left with didn't have it, and they had to find a way to move forward. And I heard it was pretty difficult from what I've heard. To answer your question, 2013.
So I heard just another part of that segue, or that rabbit hole. I heard that there were really good Marines that should have picked up staff, and there were really horrible Marines that really should have been pogues and just swapped off and slackers. And it was more of a political move.
I didn't say that, by the way. For anybody that was not me.
I've been out since '99, so they can't touch me.
See the way the people are.
And but I saw it from not just the infantry; it was all walks of life, and it was a normal thing that if you were politically inclined to be favored in your unit, you're going to get the tap. If you're not, if you're one little thing, or your CO doesn't like you, or your platoon commander doesn't like you, or whatever, your staff, your first sergeant thinks you're a piece of shit for whatever reason because you didn't pick up your socks one day and he caught you. You're not. That's the end of your career, and that's bullshit, toxic crap that makes the Marine Corps. That's one of the shit. That's why I got out, right?
Yeah.
But that's neither here. When you got out, what was the transition? What did they do to help you transition? Because I got freaking green weenie.
I heard it's changed some sense, and I had one of my clients that he works for a financial readiness firm, and they actually go to the TAPS classes now, where they try and prepare Marines financially, offer them services before they get out. I want to say I had I don't know if it was 2 days or 2 weeks. 2 weeks sounds like too long. I think it was like a 3 or 2 day thing where you dress up in civilian attire and you go and you sit in the classroom and all these experts and people come through and they talk to you about this is how you apply for your benefits. This is how you do a resume. This is how you create a normal email that doesn't have the word Semper Fi in it. All these little things. And honestly, the problem with that for me was that like I'm still in. I didn't do it like on my last week in service. I think I did it like I don't know 3 or 4 or 5 months in. It's a check in the box for the Marine Corps for the unit. Hey, did so and so complete his TAPS classes, and then they just send you. And once that's done, and then you go back and you're a Marine still. You're not going to get to apply any of those things that you just learned. And that's all that the Marine Corps did for me. And it was very uneventful. I got my D214 and I went to my platoon and I was doing that early out program. So technically I was still in, but I was on very long terminal. And I went to this new job in San Francisco and grew my hair out and I was working this job and no ties to the Marine Corps really at all. And I remember my last day leaving and I was so bummed out because a week before one of our other guys got out and at the time of the day that they did it, it was after formation. It was his last day. He was about to leave. It was on like, I think a Friday. So it was like very ceremonial and they pulled the platoon and we pulled him behind the barracks and we gave him a pink belly. And I didn't get one. And I was so angry about that. I'm like, did they not love me enough to beat me up a little bit? Because it was a random Wednesday at noon, and I think they were all getting ready to go on to the field. They were in the rifles and the radios, and it was unceremonious. And just like that, I'm out. I don't know if that answers your question. I think I went off on a bit of a tangent.
It does, because part of my problem, part of me recognizing that I had to give up my ghost is I went to a counselor and I had to walk through it. It took me years to identify what the problem was, and there was no identification back in that day, right? We didn't know. You're out, go get a civilian job. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had my first job was selling sheets at a mall, like bed sheets.
my problem, and
second job actually.
I don't know what it's like to be in the Army or Navy, and I'm not saying that it's any different, but in the Marine Corps, we get brainwashed. Yeah, we get brainwashed like you wouldn't believe, right?
Indoctrination is heavy.
Right, and you assume that, and that's part of the problem is that there's no disc-in-doc, or I don't even know, because there's no such thing, but there's no psychological, we get psychologically molded into Marine, JJT buckle, leadership principles, immediate action, all this other stuff that gets just pounded in your head, and you get out there and you're an authorized killer. That's your job.
I mean, you can't even use your name for 3 months, for Christ. Absolutely.
Right.
This recruit.
Why don't we have something like that deprograms all the veterans? And it's not just we're deprogramming you from the military. This is how you're going to transition, because it would put you out of business, right? But
go for it.
Right. That's why we're having these conversations, so that we can go out and say, hey, look, brass. I don't know if you saw that there was a news article, Camp Pendleton. I think it was the School of Infantry, just got looked at. There's mold, there's decrepit living conditions, there's trash everywhere. And how dare they do that to our military? How dare they, right? How dare they let the maintenance of these buildings, where we're shacking up these Marines, right? When I was in the Marines, we went to Camp Talaga. When I was in the reserves, I went to Camp Talaga for a 2-week thing, and there was mold and the sewage was flooding back into the houses. There was no running water. It was a decrepit situation. It was like the Gomer Pyle Quonset huts. I don't know if you ever went over there, but how dare they allow Marines or military to live in conditions like that? It's worse than being in jail, right?
I have an opinion on that. I think that it's because we accept it. I think it's because we embrace that suck, right? Like,
in a way,
if it was unacceptable, then it would be unacceptable. But because that sergeant major that allows it to happen, that freaking gunner sergeant, that first sergeant, that staff sergeant, that sergeant, that corporal, because they went through it and it was acceptable back then, and you found a way to deal with it because you know what? You always do more with less. We're the Marine Corps. We are freaking the pit bull of the military. We don't care if our equipment is terrible. We're gonna be able to bash your head with the freaking end of our K-bar. We almost take a little bit of pride in that fact that we don't need the best equipment. I will freaking do enough with my K-bar that I know the Army can't do it. I think that's there. I
don't take it personally.
Yeah. But I think that there's something in there.
Yeah, it's totally it. Matter of fact, it's as simple as this. We know it is acceptable because
it's still wrong. I'm with you, Vito.
Right, it's not right or wrong. I'm not making a debate about whether it's right or wrong, but I know it's acceptable there because
you got it.
It exists, right?
Yeah.
If it was unacceptable, it would not.
And it wouldn't exist. Absolutely. And I just think that's been like the culture. I think you're right.
Because, and if you're a boot lieutenant or even a fresh captain or a brand new major, the first thing you're going to do is, oh, maybe I should check on my troops. And you look at there and you're like, you know what? If I raise my hand.
Yeah, it's not your problem. If the staff sergeant is taking care of them and he's not saying anything, then why would I?
And if I went up to my battalion commander and I said, sir, they're living in decrepit conditions, you're going to come back to me. Or he's going to come back to me just like you did. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
It's a culture thing.
Perfect.
It's a culture thing, but for Christ's sake, it's the health and welfare of our military. It's not just the Marines, because I'm sure that there's how many freaking Army bases are there? 140 different.
That's a military-wide issue for sure.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's nobody policing.
I don't know if the Air Force is.
Yeah, probably. But just an example of how hard it is to fight culture. I think just in that example, you would think, so an outsider or somebody who wouldn't know better, wow, the Marine School of Infantry, that place must be squared away. But if you dig under the layers and understand the context of the culture, you totally say, just like how you unpack that, JP, like how that, well, if you unpack context, this is why. And take that out even farther, talk about the culture that you just described when you separated from service, going to that VFW, wearing the garb, having the beers, talking war stories, and then that becomes the excitement of your life or the high of your week, and then the drudgery of the everyday life that you're trying to get through to make it to Saturday night or Friday night to have that beer to tell a war story again, talk about how much society sucks and America sucks and this, that, the other. Like that's a culture too.
Absolutely.
Right? Huge part of veteran culture.
Yeah.
And that's what you're fighting as well. And so it takes, and it's going to take a minute for sure.
I want the veteran to be able to not dread that random Wednesday when they're going into class and they're dealing with 20-something-year-olds and realize there's something I can learn here. I have to drop that ego of me being I'm older, I'm better, I'm wiser. Because if you have the mentality, you're not going to learn anything. And then before you know it, like you're going to look forward to that Friday, going to the VFW and having a beer and, you know what, just complaining about how much you hate this world. You live in this world now. Like you got to make the best of it by doing something about it. And I want that veteran to be able to go into class on that Tuesday and be the group leader for his project, or be willing to inspire and motivate another young individual and learn something. Like, if you feel like you know everything, the hell are you going to learn?
Right, that's
if
right.
You feel like you know it all. What do you
always be willing to learn. I'm 55 years old. I always learn. Like before we got on, JP, you and I were talking about connecting my URL to my blog, and I messed it up, and I'm just okay. I'm going to spend the time today to figure out. I'm not going to sell a house today. Figure out how to fix this blog thing, and it's I'm sure it's just one little tiny thing that I'm missing, and it is what it is. But I'm always
there's probably more you're missing. I'm just going to say.
I told you that's me. It's freaking the dope behind the gun.
I know we're getting to an hour here though, and I just want to be respectful of your
you know what. I'm good for a little bit longer, but we can. How about we'll end on whenever you feel a high note is, because I have another 30 minutes, but I'm good at ending it whenever you feel like we have that.
Yeah, let's go a little bit longer here. And like I said, this stuff's going to be used for a lot of things. With your permission,
100%, 150%, go for it.
I'd like to have you back on again a couple times.
I'd love to. I'd love
to have you as a regular.
Yeah, no, I love talking about this stuff.
No, I want to.
It's healing for me. This is like
high heavens, man, because I think that what you're building is great. I think next time I'd love to get more into your pillars. I don't want to shortchange it though. So
you're good.
Our time. because I'm super in the last couple of years, especially this last year, I got very focused on who I wanted to serve going forward. Just realized like, wow, we have this whole veteran generation that's coming out, and there's a lot of resources out there to support them moving forward.
Yeah.
And if we can help shift the culture to empower a young veteran or an older veteran.
Oh, you got to cut that part out.
Continue that service to help build the community, raise up strong families, and help bring the country further together.
Yeah.
Whether you're on the left side or right side, doesn't matter what your politics are. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. And but first, it comes with healing yourself and creating a powerful relationship with yourself. The longest relationship we'll ever have is that one, right? And getting down to the core and getting to the source of it. Because we are the source. Each one of us is the source of everything we create in our lives. And the better we treat ourselves, the more right we get there, the more we fix the brokenness there, the more it's possible. So that's what's beautiful about what you're creating, man. So I'm excited to support it any way I can.
I really appreciate that. I really do. And I want to add one thing to what you mentioned, because you hit on a point that really I've realized is very important. But the mentality that we have of being resilient serves us in a huge way when we're out. And that's one of those things that you can leverage. But one of the things I've heard from a lot of older veterans is that I'm so happy you're doing this for the younger generations. I wish I would have had this when I got out. I'm still suffering, but you know what? As long as you're helping those new guys, like that not me mentality, or like it's too late for me, or just the mentality of I'm stuck in my ways and then this is just the way life is for me, it really hurts a lot of older veterans. And when I say older veterans, as far as I've been out for 10 years, and I don't mean old in age, old in time of reference of how long you've been out, because a lot of people think I've been out for 10 years. This is my life. I created it. This is where I'm at. Nothing's going to change. I'm set in my ways. I'm just happy that this message is being put out for the younger veterans. But here I am going through a divorce. I have a drinking problem, and I haven't worked out in freaking 5 years. But I'm just happy that this message is out there for those young guys now. And that really hurts a lot of veterans, because they feel like the message isn't for them. No, I'm just happy it's out there for those that are receiving it. And some of them do join, and thankfully they can make some changes.
And let's be clear, for me, and you're right, I hear that in my own version for what I'm doing. And what I usually hear is that's a great excuse not to do anything. When you say, I'm glad they're, I'm using that very generally, because that's not true for
not everybody.
It's not.
Nothing is black and white.
But for many, I think it is. Like, it's a good excuse to not have to move, not have to change, to stay in that place of being a victim to the circumstance and what happened. And it can be scary to make a change, frankly. It's whether even if it's a positive thing for you, and when the circumstances are terrible, it is still scary, and it is a risk to change it up. So I get that too, for a lot of folks. And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because what you're doing is not just to be put on the shelf or pigeonholed into a place that it's just for some new veteran transitioning. No, it's not. This is for anybody who can benefit from it.
And it doesn't matter if you're a veteran or not, right? Because I know so many civilians with that same mindset. This is the, I don't know, I'm so, my dad, he's 75, 76 years old. He's in the hospital right now with pneumonia. This guy for the last 20 years has been spiraling down into despair, self-despair, lack of physical activity. Guy walks around with a cane, and it's killing my mom, because his mindset is, I'm going to sit in front of the TV and watch Fox News and yell at the TV, and honey, can you bring me my dinner? Like, my mom's rebelling right now because she's pissed off at him because he's just given up. And guys, if you're listening to this, guys and ladies, if you're listening to this, there's no reason for you to give up on life. If you can only do one push-up, or you can't even do one push-up, it's at least the start, right? Yeah. You can get yourself up to 50 push-ups, and I see that as a physical thing, but it's mental, it's fitness, it's everything. You got to start. You got to want to make that change. And yes, sometimes it's scary. And yes, when you start something physical again, you're going to be sore for 2 weeks. But there's, on the other side of that, there's just so much hope and so much energy and so much motivation.
Yeah, and when we're thought on, kind of sum it up for me, it's like the best is always yet to come, depending on the choices we make. And our service, our career, our time in uniform should never be the only highlight that we fall on. It should just be, it should be an experience that, for me, it's an experience I draw upon to pull me forward. And that is easy to say, and it sounds good. It's hard in practice, and harder for some than it is for others. And any support that we can get around those who it's hard to do that, to make that choice, because it is easy to say. It's something that looks nice on paper and reads well, hard in practice. This resource that you put together, I'm sure it's in creation still. I'm sure you're still perfecting it. So I'm excited to see what you do with it over the next coming years. I'm sure it's not complete, and there's still a lot more coming for JP as well.
Yeah, it's a work in progress always, but it's pretty built up right now to the program where we've had over 100 veterans come to the program as far as starting to finish. Most of them, a good percentage of them, make some really big changes in their lives. We have veterans in the group right now that finally had the clarity to start therapy, apply for that job that they've always wanted, build up the resume, have that conversation, move out of their parents' basement, end their relationship. But they're empowering themselves by taking the action. You can have the best strategy in the world, that map, but unless your mindset is in a good enough place where you're doing the work, you're gonna have that doubt, and then the strategy doesn't even matter. All of it works together. You have to remember that when you look in the mirror and then you're wearing that hoodie that brings you back to the old days. Like for me, it's this one. This is 3-1 Lima Company, and I was 2nd Platoon. And for me, looking at this reminds me of the fact that I've done something hard, that whatever comes my way, it's just another challenge, and it's not overwhelm. It's opportunity. And I try and look at every day as an added value, everything that comes your way. Waking up in the morning and jumping in my ice barrel, for me, it's like, it's a gift. I get to do that. I do it, and then I feel better afterwards, and then I can freaking just destroy the day with everything that I have, and there's just no reason to slow down. And when you can come across those challenges in life and you can actually look at them and try and detach a little bit and look back and realize there's a lot of positive things that the military gave me. I'm not against the military in any way. I love my time in the Marine Corps. The best years of my life up until I had the next best years of my life, and I have children. Now these are the best years of my life, and every year of your life you should be trying to make it the best years of your life, because if we don't have that, then what do we have?
Absolutely. You know what? Next year's going to be better. And I totally agree with you. And so I hire a lot of veteran VAs, virtual assistants out of the Philippines, and their mindset is, oh shit, I messed up. I can't say anything. So they're going to bury it. No, you messed up. Let's talk about it. Let's cherish it. This is how we learn, how we get better from our mistakes. And I make mistakes every day. And I do 4 videos live videos every week on what's going on in the market. And sometimes I make a mistake, and that's okay. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I used to be in high school, I'd daydream or look at Susie Rotten Crotch and daydream about doing whatever I want to do with her. And then all of a sudden I get back into the conversation, the lecture, I totally forget about what's going on. And I'm like, I have a question, but I'm so stupid. I don't want to look stupid and ask another question that he just talked about. When I went back to school, I graduated with my degree, my bachelor's, when I was 41. So I was the old man of San Jose State. And I had no qualms asking questions because I didn't get things. And I'm like, and I went up to the professors. I go, look, it's been years. You got to pound this stuff into my head. And they appreciated it. So they totally flipped that conversation. So flip that conversation. People are always going to be there to lift you up. There's going to be 5% of those people that are trolls that'll try to bring you down. You have to ignore them. You got to find your tribe, and you have a great tribe going, and I appreciate what you're doing.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Oh, JP, so I'm excited to stay in touch, man. We'll have to do this again sometime soon, and
I would love that.
Love to see how big and bad you make it.
I appreciate that. I have some pretty freaking big dreams, and I
can't wait to see you on the talking circuit, going around the United States, talking to veterans. And
I really want to. We'll talk more about that next time, because I think that one of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself is to truly see yourself in a grandiose light. Because if that's your goal, that's your aim, imagine where you're going to end up. No matter what, if you aim for the stage, if you aim for more from life, and I get it, it's not for everybody, not everybody wants that, but if you can find a way to envision more for yourself, then man, sky's the limit for you, for everybody.
That's right.
I have a talk that I do, and I want to make $1 million, right? And it's called the BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goal.
Ooh, I like that.
I've never gotten to it, but you know what? That's my goal. Every year I want to make $1 million. Do I get to it? No. But you know what? I get halfway there. I get 2/3 of the way there, a third of the way. Who cares? It doesn't matter. One day I'm going to get to that, and then my next goal is going to be 2 million, 5 million, right?
Absolutely. Keep moving it down. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep moving it further and further because you can keep going.
The process of who you become in the pursuit. That's
The
really
journey.
The journey.
Yeah.
I think we should end it there.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we
JP,
have
let's
plenty of
get
stuff
you
that we can talk about next time.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we can talk about your feelings on sniper school ending for the Marine Corps, right? Did I hear that right?
Oh man, you had to just bring that up right now. Ooh.
Hey man, I'm gonna jab back. When I get incoming, prepare for return fire.
Yeah.
It's all right. You know what's gonna happen? They're just gonna go into the Army school. That's what's gonna happen.
No, I think it's gonna come back. I think it's, and that's me being hopeful. That could be like the romantic in me of like, why did you bring?
Same reason why they got rid of assault, right? Because they're going to smaller, smarter units. I understand the mindset. You still have to.
I don't.
I've been out long enough, and I've lost that political edge. And I get it. That's the new mission of the Marine Corps: softer targets, smaller targets, and
I actually know a lot about this only because we ain't getting into all that. But anyways, there is a strategy. I'm not saying the strategy's right, but and JP may have looked into it too, since it's a love of his.
I've done some research on it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works out. But I think it'll probably come back in different form at some point. And it's going to take some lessons learned for it to happen.
They're